Okay, so here's my project for the week, for week 2. This is the electric motors catalyst box that I used to produce this fun little spin art robot. It uses those markers, and you can strap them in right in that center spot right there. And what we're going to be doing is I'm going to be showing you how I do that real quick with some more paper and another big roll. So the way that this works is the switch is on the bottom here. These wires are connected to these 2 points, and these 2 points are the connecting points. So the idea here is I'm just going to turn it on and it's going to spin. Yeah, so that's what it does. And yeah, so these are just, this is a parallel circuit here, because these connections here are, like all of the wires come to these points here. So as opposed to going through one motor and then the other motor in series, it's going through both of the motors at the same time. So it comes to both of these, and then it goes out to both motor. So it goes into one, out to both motors at the same time, back into the other one, and back to the battery as the circuit. Okay, so the way that we get these markers in here is by taking off, let's see, we'll do blue and green for this next one. And so I'm going to take the blue, and it goes through like that, and we're going to take the green, and it goes through like that. So the overall point of the project is going to be to have students figure out how to utilize the motors in conjunction with the batteries and the overall structure. It's going to be challenging for these students to construct this for a couple of different reasons. Getting the battery pack to stay on there in a good way is pretty tricky. Getting the motors to stay on there in a good way is pretty tricky. Figuring out how to utilize these little L brackets can end up being a challenge for students. You know, basically getting the motors to stay where you want them to ended up being a bit more of a challenge than I thought it would be. And you know, the project overall was definitely more frustrating than I thought it was going to be initially. And then I proceeded to turn it on when I really shouldn't have. I didn't even know that the markers were going to spray out, and it splattered all over my living room. So we had a really cool sort of moment of discovery, and then we had a whole bunch of moments of cleaning. And so then after that, I discovered that it would be a really great splatter art tool. So now I'm going to show you how we can make that kind of splatter art. Also, for this demonstration, I'm going to use a different style of canvas. I'm going to use a circular canvas. So I'm going to take a large piece of paper, much larger than this strip is, but this is going to be a nice little demonstration. And I will basically just staple it like that so that I can have it in my bathtub. And then I'm going to put another piece of paper underneath it. And that's going to be how I protect the bathtub and keep the splatter from getting everywhere, and it's going to minimize cleanup. All right, so here we go. Okay, take 2. So the current problem is that the thing keeps vibrating off the end. The initial problem was that it rotated so well that it immediately spun up to speed and sprayed it all over the living room. The question is, how come it's not doing it now? And we're gonna keep trying. Okay, so I reorganized the rubber bands that were holding it all together. So now they start at the bottom, they go up through the hole there, back down through the hole, onto the outside, up around, and then latch onto that center peg, that bolt. And it happens on both sides, and it holds the bolt taut from either side and keeps it nice and vertical. And now hopefully that will do the same thing with those markers. So let's see if this works. All right, let's investigate what happened. So, as we can see in the bottom, it made sort of an interesting pattern. Sort of an interesting little scrabbly pattern. And so let's see what happens when we unfold that. Okay, so that's the device. In the end, the markers can get a little bit busted up, but you know, that's what other markers are for. So this is what that bottom piece ended up looking like. Really nice little sort of a splatter right there. I really like that. And then the other piece is this piece right here. I'm really happy with this. This looks pretty cool. So this is the kind of project that I hope that kids could produce. I think it's really interesting looking. I think that they would have a lot of fun making their art. And if they're lucky, they'd get some really cool patterns like these. I think that really, really well illustrates the point that I was going for with it just being a really fun project that produces some cool art. And the overall engineering challenge of making this little guy right here is actually pretty high. It's a fairly difficult project. So, you know, that's definitely going to be something I take into account if I ever do this project with students. So I'm not really sure how many times a marker is going to be able to really do the splatter art very well. As you can see, I've already used the blue marker once to produce this one, and it really has some nice sorts of features to it. The bottom formed a really nice mist. It's, you know, it's the reason why I folded it up like this is that I thought it actually produced some really cool fine patterns in addition to some really fun larger patterns. And that was actually the reason why I folded it in reverse, is because just the overall pattern, especially here on the edges, was really one that I thought was really fun and really interesting looking. And so again, it produced a really kind of a cool piece of art. I don't know, maybe it's like a sort of a spray art for some kind of a commercial thing, or maybe it's something that's more sort of representational of something that's more emotional and less commercial. Either way, I feel like it is a really fun project.